Update. I was an affair baby. Original story. I was an affair baby. My dad was 42 and married with a 20-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter, and my mom was 21 when I was born. My dad divorced his then wife and married my mom, but he kept in close contact with his children, but they never wanted to meet me. I didn't know about the affair or my dad's other family until I was 17. I always felt lonely being the only child, and knowing I had some half-siblings out there gave me some hope. So I messaged them on Facebook and told them I wanted to meet them and have a relationship with them, but understand if they don't. They didn't reply at the time, and this was 4 years ago. 6 months ago, I received a Facebook message from my half-sister telling me they wanted to meet. I was thrilled. We met and we have been forming a siblings bond since. Problem is, most of my half-siblings' family is upset that we're connecting, but especially their mother. She feels somehow betrayed and see me as the reason her marriage and family are broken. Then a week ago was my half-brother's birthday party and I was invited. This is the first birthday I got to celebrate with one of my half-siblings. Their mother was also there. She didn't talk the whole evening and left early. After she left, my sister-in-law called me aside and told me I was disrupting my half-siblings' family life by showing up. I was putting them on a spot where they have to choose a side. Same with the rest of the family. And at most, the family sided with my half-siblings' mom. So if I really cared about my half-siblings, I would step back. I don't know how to handle this. I do want to be in my half-siblings' lives, but I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can someone please give me some advice on how doing this in the less painful and hurtful way to everybody? Edit. My sister-in-law is my half-brother's wife. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Leave it up to your half-siblings. If they want a relationship with you, awesome. If they don't, then you are better off without, regardless of the reason. Yes, and OP, tell your half-brother what his wife told you. She absolutely went behind his back on that one, and he didn't know she said that. Because if he'd felt the same way she did, he wouldn't have invited you to his party. Let them handle their family. It's not your family, so you don't have any responsibility towards them. This, exactly. I have 4 half-siblings, 2 of whom are from my dad's second family. I would absolutely want to know if my partner ever said anything to them about the situation without me there. And I would never ever leave something like that up to anyone but me to decide. If I choose to invite them to an event at my home, it's because I want them there. End of story. Your half-sister is 34 years old, assuming I did the math right. I think she gets to choose if she wants a relationship with you, and it certainly isn't your sister-in-law's decision. Discuss it with your half-sister. She's a big girl, and she can make her own decisions. It's not your fault your dad had an affair. And while it's understandable that the mom probably feels hurt seeing you being reminded of the affair, you aren't the one that hurt her. You're just a pawn. Assuming you're all adults now, your half-siblings get to choose if they want to have a relationship with you or not. Being friends with you doesn't mean they're betraying their mom, though she may still be hurt, because you aren't the one who hurt her. Your dad did. Your sister-in-law was butting in, and it isn't her place. And now for the update. I talked to my siblings. It was my brother who told me we needed to talk. Apparently, after the birthday party, one of his daughters approached him and asked why they needed to be nice with me when I was the reason their grandparents' marriage is broken. My brother was shocked because neither my sister or him told their kids any of this. They weren't aware of the circumstances of my birth. My brother asked who told them that, and she told him it was her mom and grandma. My brother is very angry at my sister-in-law and his mom. He already talked to them, and his wife told him she disapproved of me. She saw it as a betrayal to her mother-in-law and doesn't understand why my siblings would want to be around a representation of their family falling apart. Plus, to her, this is as if my brother is enabling cheating and somehow becomes him any pro-cheating. Their mom, on the other hand, told him that at first when my siblings informed her their desire to meet me, she thought she will be okay with it. But after seeing me, she realized she hated me more than she thought. She told him she was well aware of my dad cheating on her, but thought he would never leave her. She just thought eventually my dad would get bored of my mom, and that would be the end of it. Turns out my mom got pregnant and my dad asked for the divorce. Hence the reason she saw me as the reason her marriage fell apart. That explains why she wasn't uncomfortable being around my dad in family gatherings and even was nice to him. All this time, she hoped that showing my dad how generous and good person she was, my dad would leave my mom and I, and return begging forgiveness. Anyway, my siblings told me that none of this was my fault, and that they actually liked me and want me in their lives. I'm already 21, and they already feel they lost a lot of time. So they told me to not to worry because they will handle this. They suggested therapy for their mom because this is really messed up, and my brother needs to work things out with his own wife. I guess it's good enough. He should tell his wife that you are not a thing that resulted from an affair. You are a person that should be judged on your own actions. You never cheated on anyone. Literally. Why does it matter so much to the wife anyway? Petty individual. Anyway, OP, I'm glad your sibling still wants a relationship with you. None of this is your fault. You didn't cheat or hurt any of them with your actions. Thanks for the update. I'm glad your brother and sister have your back. Your original post had me a little worried because I read it as your half-sister inviting you to the party without asking the brother. Hopefully everything can continue to improve. I'm sorry that you were caught in the middle of all of it. It's not your fault what happened between your father and his ex-wife. I'm glad that you're looking at it in a positive way, and the fact that your half-brother and half-sister were very welcoming was quite nice. I really hope that the mom would consider going to therapy. I don't support cheating, but it's not fair for you if they treated you badly due to something that is literally out of your control. Next story is titled, My 45 male daughter 22 female wants to buy her sister 17 female a car, and it's tearing our family apart. I have two daughters. Ava is 22 and Lily 17. They have an amazing bond, and their mom left right after Lily was born, and Ava took on that role. Don't get me wrong, I didn't encourage it, and I didn't want her to grow up too fast, but Ava always viewed Lily as her baby. I have a stepdaughter Rose, who is 16. I remarried 10 years ago, and honestly, we did not succeed at blending families. The girls absolutely hate each other, especially Ava and Rose. We have rules and consequences, so that shut down the worst of the fighting, but they refuse to interact unless absolutely forced. There's less fighting with Ava gone, but Lily and Rose don't even want to be in the same room, and we only see one on the night the other has extracurriculars. I feel bad about the whole situation. We are solid middle class, but Ava is rich. She has been extremely successful in the field she got into young, and I never touched her money, so she has accumulated massive savings and continues to kill it in her chosen field. I'm very proud, but it has caused some issues. Ava likes to take Lily on expensive trips and outings, which makes Rose jealous, and my wife gets angry on her behalf. Now here's the issue at hand. Lily didn't get her license last year due to lack of time/motivation because she was being treated for severe anxiety. She's now getting her license at the same time as Rose, and Ava wants to buy Lily a nice car. She's talking BMW or Mercedes. When she told me I didn't have an issue, but my wife was very upset. She says it isn't fair to Rose, and that I need to set clear boundaries with Ava about her favoritism and refusal to consider Rose's family. Ava told Lily, and now Lily feels that if she doesn't get a car, I'm choosing my new family over her. Ava's furious and says no one has the right to force her to consider Rose and my wife her family. Rose cried and demanded I don't let Lily have the car. I have no idea what to do. Realistically, if I say no, she will still get the car in a year. No matter what I do, someone is going to be hurt. Let's be honest, your family was already torn apart before this. Whether or not Ava buys a car for Lily, is it going to change things much? Your daughters are not going to magically accept Rose as their sister. My only advice is to talk to Ava about the car, so it's clear who's paying for the insurance and find the best car for a young and experienced driver. Ava already knows she is paying the insurance. The cars she was suggesting are very safe, which makes me more inclined to agree. Then you really don't have much leg to stand on with forbidding it. You lose both daughters if you dig your heels in, as Lily will have the car but does not want to speak with you anymore. Rose is just envious, and you shouldn't enable envy, and her mother should be teaching her that not everything is fair, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You don't really have a place to object here. Ava's a legal adult, and Lily's less than a year away from being one also. It sucks that it hurts your stepdaughter, but she's going to learn life isn't always fair anyway. I also talked her into buying a less expensive car for a brand new driver. Yeah, damage control. Focus on her purchasing a car with the highest possible safety ratings. You didn't have an issue with this until your wife told you to have an issue. If their whole childhood has been like this, be prepared to lose both your daughters forever. Your wife cannot force Ava to see Rose as a sibling when they're not siblings. Your stepdaughter sounds like an entitled brat, and your wife is a jealous nightmare. And this is Ava buying a car for her sister. The money isn't coming from you. And your wife has no right to tell Ava how she can and can't spend her money, or on who. Now for the last story. My wife said she plans to exclude my daughter 17 female, her stepdaughter 15 years who calls her mom, from her will. My wife 51 female and I 55 male have a blended family. When we got married, she had a 10-year-old son, now 25, and 6-year-old daughter, now 21. My daughter was 2 and her mom, who suffered from chronic depression, had died from a drug overdose soon after her birth and therefore doesn't remember anything of her biological mother. My wife and I later had a son together, now aged 12. When we got married, my wife's ex-husband had begun his medical residency 2 hours away and was more of a weekend and holidays fixture in the kids' lives. I told her how much I adored her kids, and they referred to me as uncle since I didn't want to step on our ex's toes. I felt that my wife also adored my daughter, and I told her how since she was the only mother figure my daughter has ever known, there was no reason for her to be called a stepmother, and hopefully the kids would refer to each other as only siblings, and my wife eagerly agreed. For the first 5 years of our marriage, everybody got along. My daughter was referred to as the older kid's little sister, and she called my wife Mom. I talked to a therapist about breaching the biological mom topic, but hesitated because I was agonizing over the right time. Then my wife got pregnant and gave birth to our son. She doted on our son and told me it was a living reminder of how much I meant to her. Around that time, the other kids felt like their mother's attention was being monopolized and started feeling jealous. They started fighting among each other, and around that time my 11-year-old told my 7-year-old that she was only a stepsister, and we had to go to therapy to deal with the fallout from that. We later also had to deal with the fact that as my younger son grew up, he had a phase where he would call my biological daughter his half-sister, but call his other 2 older siblings his sister and brother. Throughout these trials, I felt like my wife was pretty even-keeled and nobody complained about favoritism. I contributed to both my 25 and 21-year-old's college fund. My oldest son is now in medical school, and I pay his expenses and half of his tuition while my wife's ex pays the other half. My 21-year-old is taking a gap year from an unpaid internship and I'm paying her rent. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for most of our marriage. I own a few restaurants and a bread and breakfast. Later, my wife and I made some real estate investments, and she recently invested in property and a parking garage on her own. She mostly keeps her earnings separate. But recently, I've been having a series of rather serious health issues. I was diagnosed 6 months ago with an autoimmune condition. I think the diagnosis kind of hammered home the fact that my wife and I might be gone sooner rather than later. We started talking about wills, and about how to best set her up so she could be our family's rock if I passed, likely much earlier than she will. I had toyed with the idea of having a joint will. My wife initially agreed to look into it, but after a while, she said that this wasn't going to work and that she wanted a separate will. She said that she was sorry for bringing this up when I was still so sick, and that it was nothing personal, but she thinks that when she leaves the earth, the fruits of her life should go to her own biological children, and that she has raised my daughter from age 2, and that's more than most other women would do for a child that wasn't theirs. I was shocked. I asked her how long she's felt this, and she admitted that it was easier in the early years of our marriage, especially since she was dealing with bad memories from her ex and how that affected her relationship with her biological children. But after our son was born, she said she realized she had something with her biological children that she never could have with my daughter, and that she felt like a bad mother every time she thought of leaving my daughter any money. She said her kids didn't deserve that, and she feels guilty every time she had to take time away from her older daughter in particular to give to my daughter. And if she left our daughter anything, she'd be essentially robbing her own kids. When I pointed out that I was leaving her kids and mine equal amounts of money, she told me to not take whatever I feel about her out on the kids. What do I do? Regardless of the money, I cannot imagine the shock that my daughter will feel when the woman she's called mom all her life without a second thought cuts her out of her will for no fault of her own. The relationship between her and her older sister in particular is filled with tension, but I think she would assume her mom loved her equally. My wife is right in her assumption that I could never fathom giving any of my kids more than the other. But this has thrown me for a loop, because the older 2 kids' father is a very successful practice and no other kids, and he has basically said he will pass it down to his kids and split assets evenly among the 2. I had intended on giving my wife the bulk of my estate, but now I know that my businesses and money will probably end up being given to all of my 3 other kids, probably way before my wife passes. I can't think of the pain that my daughter will feel. I don't know whether or not I need to prepare my daughter for that eventual reality, whether she's old enough to worry about matters of wills, and the possibility of the complexity between her mom's decision. I know my wife enough to see that this has been something she's been decided on for a long time, and she's resolute about it. I have set up my daughter's college fund single-handedly. Despite me not thinking anything of it before, I now resent my wife for not even offering to help despite the bountiful returns her investments have gotten her, which she had used to pay for numerous miscellaneous costs for our oldest son in medical school, and also to buy her 12-year-old very lavish gifts. I would call her bluff. Show her your new will that excludes her children, and even her, leaving everything to your daughter and your shared son. Use her exact words as your defense of this decision. Edit. As actual advice, regardless of whether divorce is on the table, you need to consult both a divorce attorney and an estate planning attorney to protect your child. You need to protect your daughter immediately. I can't even fathom your wife's logic. It is so undeniably cruel. Leave the majority to your daughter, but include your son as well. Please take care to install bulletproof trusts for them. Your so-called wife sounds like a monster. I would be tempted to put the house in your daughter's name and make your wife rent from her. My condolences. You need to rewrite your will, leaving the bulk of your estate to your daughter. Not because you're taking anything out on your wife's kids, but because you've learned that the child's other parent intends to make no provision for her. So you need to adjust your bequests, so that she's cared for the manner you expect and intend. There are state laws regarding what a spouse is entitled to, however, and you should consult an attorney in your state.